So today we're here at the English, the oldest distillery in England, and in my hand I have their sherry cask matured single malt whiskey, and I want to know how we get from barley to this.
Absolutely perfectly clear and absolutely delicious.
In a world of whiskey where time is your friend, that is incredibly valuable.
Everything you'll see around the entire distillery is done by hand.
You need to be able to buy a bottle, take it home, open it, share it, it means.
So what you see behind me is the distilling floor, and we're about to join Mike, who's a sales director. We're going to get into a bit of detail about how this all works.
So this is the distilling floor. It's really good because you can see the entire process and where it actually works. So we start off in the cream coloured piping, and down below is where our barley is actually milled. So it comes through as grist, which we'll see a little bit later on as we get down there. And then it comes into the mash tun, and we're going to end up with really a sugary water. Then that comes into our washbacks, so our fermentation vessels down here. And then eventually, what's called the wash goes into the first bit of the distillation. So we have two pot stills, copper pot stills. The first one is called the wash still, and then the second one is called the spirit still. So shall we take a walk down and have a look at the process as we go? So what we've got here is we've got the first of the three washbacks. You're not going to get a lot of smell, or there's no alcohol in this as it's filling. But as soon as that's filled, then we'll have the yeast, and then the fermentation process will start. So we'll move on to this one, which was filled yesterday. Now you're starting to get them tropical fruit flavours starting to come in, and you can smell a little bit of the alcohol coming off and that, but you can literally see it bubbling away in there. So that was Monday, and then this one over here was filled on Friday. So as you can see, all them bubbles and has really died down now. But what you do get, like mango and pineapple and lots of things like that coming up on there.
Way more fruit in
Yeah,
this one.
absolutely. So this has now been fermenting for about 100 hours. So then we'll draw off here, and then we'll go over to the wash still, which is the first part of the distillation, and there we'll start distilling it. So come on over. So this is the wash still. So this is our 2,750 litre copper pot still, made like everything else on here in Elgin in Scotland, a place called Forsyths, which is the #1 still builder in the entire world, really. So what we're going to put in here is basically what we've drawn off there, which is wash.
Okay.
So, and this is around about 7.5% alcohol. It's basically like an unhopped beer. All the pot still is really is a big kettle. Because alcohol evaporates at a lower temperature than what water does, then you're going to start getting alcohol vapours coming up the top. And only like the really finest and lightest vapours are going to get over the top into the arm, and then they're going to hit here and condensate. And then where it'll go is we'll collect it in here, which is called the spirit still. What we're actually collecting here is what's called low wines. This is around about 23-28% alcohol. But you can see, if you hold it up to the light, you can see slight imperfections in it. And you can see a slight little blue haze to it as well. The blueness comes from the copper pot still. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that liquid, and then we're going to pop it into the second still, which is the spirit still. We're going to continue the same process again. However, how we pull it off on here is slightly different. You have to take off the first bit of the distillation and the finishing part of the distillation. Some people call it the heads and tails. So everything you'll see around the entire distillery is done by hand. So you've got hydrometers in there where we test the alcohol, and then the skill of the distiller is to basically come off and come on, which he does by turning that handle. And that's how he literally moves it so it's collected downstairs in a different vessel. So the heart of the spirit that we're collecting is this, which is new make spirit. This is coming off at around about 73% alcohol. Absolutely perfectly clear and absolutely delicious, really. And then that is what is going to end up in cask. It's going to disappear off into the shed, and it can't be called whiskey for a minimum of 3 years.
So we've just had a tour of the distilling floor, which is right behind me, and now we're going to have a one-on-one conversation with Andrew, who's the owner and founder of the English Distillery.
We're slightly unusual that we make two white spirits. We make a peated one and an unpeated one. So the original comes from the unpeated one, obviously, and smoky comes from the peated one. And then we take those two spirits and we could, again, different casks, different ages, etc., to make a huge range of single malt whiskies. Just because we know that rum and sherry casks work well with us, so does sweet white wine. That doesn't mean if you opened a whiskey distillery down the road, the same cask would work. Yeah. Because every still makes a different type of spirit. As time goes on, you tend to narrow it down, which is why this one, the new sherry cask matured, has joined the core range, because after 18 years, we've got enough stock of sherry matured whiskey to become a core product. My father's vision didn't start off like this. And so I think his initial thoughts have been to open a tiny little whiskey distillery that would produce enough whiskey for him and his mates. And the Customs and Excise had a rule back then that set the minimum size of the spirit still at 1,800 litres. And that rule had been in place forever. And so where most people would either give up or, this happened later, a few years later, fight to have that rule removed, he went, I'll just build a big distillery then. And it was as simple as that. He drew this building on an envelope. By the time we'd got to a built distillery and kit, etc., it became fairly apparent that we weren't going to make a bit of whiskey for him and his mates. We were going to be making a lot more whiskey. So he never set out to make something really left field or wacky, or it was just to make superb single malt whiskies that he could share.
Well, we're going to start with the sherry cask.
We're going to guess, because that's the one that won
Your
everything.
dad did achieve his dream of making a
Now, I would have a go of try a tiny little bit neat. It's 46% alcohol. It's incredibly easy drinking.
Yeah, that's like really...
It's just lovely. Smooth, rich. And the best way to drink whiskey is however you want to. But if you want to taste whiskey, and that is entirely different to drinking whiskey, our belief is it should be below about 35% alcohol, because at that point the meniscus on top will break. So that oily layer, once it's broken, the aromas can escape a lot easier. I remember my first ever public whiskey talk and tasting. They were sat there with stopwatches. They were timing how long the finish was. I was like, oh my God, hadn't even heard of that timing of finish back then. But yeah, so people can get lost in the world of tasting. It's quite interesting.
So I'm going to try the original.
Yes. We're going a bit the wrong way around, but don't worry about it. It'll be fine. So this has just been in bourbon casks. It's made the same way. It's a similar age. It's just missing some of that fruitiness. It's also 43%, not 46%. But it's by far and away our best-selling whiskey.
Yeah, it's slightly less fruity than the other.
It's less fruity. It's very simple. It's got nice legs. It's slightly oily. You drink it before dinner, after dinner, during dinner. You know, it is the ultimate sharing whiskey.
It's a good introduction to it as well.
Yeah. Yes.
It's something that wouldn't put me off if I was trying it for the first time.
Do you want to try smoky? So you've got to think of this. So remember what you've just tasted.
Okay.
Because in reality, it is exactly the same. And the only difference is the barley and how it was malted. Have a sip. This one, the smoke comes later.
Okay.
Right at the end.
Yeah, it tastes like a barbecue at the end.
And it just keeps coming.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
That's all right. It's been lovely.
I think we're going to go and try some straight from the barrel.
Okay.
Now we're going to head outside into one of the bonded warehouses where we store the casks and basically create the delicious whiskey that we've got. So follow me.
Now it's the great, is there anything in? There might not be anything in it at all. So this is, we think, well, this went in there in 2011. If I had my reading glasses on, I'd tell you a lot more. But remember, it's going to be 60+% alcohol.
It tastes like 60-something%.
Yeah, it does. So, now back to my original thing. You can't have enough water. So we're trying to get it to 30%, 35% thereabouts. If you go back to your original, we're going to be looking for a bit more wood influence, a few more layers of flavour, but the same principle of you can share it with your mates.
You can share that with your mates.
Yeah, you can. We, I believe, are the only distillery that has no investors, no shareholders, no banks.
Completely independent.
It's just us. And so if we don't want to open a cask and sell it, we won't. We don't have to. You know, nobody wants a return on their money. Nobody's gone, oh, my investment ought to be paid back. And that is in a world of whiskey where time is your friend, that is incredibly valuable. Because if I think this wants another 5 years, it'll get another 5 years just because someone wants a dividend. Tough.
So there we have it. We've explored the process from grain to glass. It was really cool to try things straight from the barrel, and I can't wait to try more of that sherry cask matured one.